Welcome to Margin Notes, the podcast where we break down complex ideas into sharp insights. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden mechanics of influence and negotiation. From psychological triggers to AI-driven persuasion, we'll explore how people shape decisions and how technology is about to supercharge those tactics. If you've ever wondered why you say yes, how others guide your choices, or what the future of persuasion looks like, this one's for you.
Okay, let's dive in. This is the deep dive, where we take your source material articles, research, maybe your own notes, and really try to cut through the noise.
Yeah, pull out those key nuggets of knowledge, the insights that matter.
Exactly. We're here to guide you, help you get informed fast, and maybe uncover a few surprises along the way.
Should be interesting today.
Definitely. Today, we're looking at something just fundamental to how we interact, but also, well, something that feels like it's on the verge of a huge shift.
Influence, negotiation.
Right, and how this coming wave of really powerful technology is hitting right at the core of it all.
We've been digging into sources from, experts in the psychology of persuasion, like the human operating system for saying yes.
Oh, yeah.
Alongside insights from high-stakes negotiation, and also looking at the real cutting-edge stuff, AI, synthetic biology, robotics.
So our mission really is to understand those hidden levers, the things that move people.
The strategies we use or that get used on us.
To get what we want, yeah. And critically, how these incredible new technologies are poised to just amplify everything in ways we haven't really seen before.
It's not just academic, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
This is about giving you a clear picture of the world you're actually navigating. One where, let's face it, attempts to influence you are absolutely everywhere, and the tools for doing it are getting, incredibly powerful.
Scary powerful, potentially.
Okay, so let's start with the bedrock, the human playbook, that deep psychology of persuasion.
Right. So a lot of our decisions, maybe most of them when it comes to agreeing to things, they happen on autopilot.
Autopilot.
Yeah, our brains use shortcuts. We look for specific trigger features in a situation. Things that usually tell us, okay, saying yes here is probably fine. It saves mental energy.
Okay, like that energy drink study you mentioned. That was wild.
Yeah, tell us about that one.
So they gave people this drink, supposed to boost mental performance, right? Some paid full price, others got a big discount.
And you'd think the discount group would be happier, maybe even perform better.
That's what I'd assume, but counterintuitively.
They actually solved fewer puzzles, the ones who paid less.
Fewer, wow.
It suggests the price itself, the lower price, acted as that trigger feature. Like, cheap means less effective. It overrode everything else. A shortcut gone wrong.
That's fascinating. It really shows how we can just bypass logic completely, just react to a cue. Okay, let's talk about a really powerful one, reciprocity, the give and take.
Oh yeah, this is huge. It's a rule that's it's hammered into us from childhood, basically. We feel this strong obligation to repay what other people give us. It's fundamental to society.
Okay, repaying makes sense.
But here's the tricky part. It's not just the obligation to repay, it's the obligation to receive. If someone gives you something unsolicited, it's hard to refuse. Right?
Yeah, it feels rude.
Exactly, and that act of receiving makes you feel indebted, makes you vulnerable.
So getting an unexpected favor puts you on the hook, psychologically.
Precisely. Think about that Regan study. Joe brings some participants an unsolicited Coke, then later asks them to buy raffle tickets. That small, unasked for Coke. It doubled the number of tickets people bought from him compared to when he didn't bring a Coke.
Doubled. Just from a Coke.
Yeah. Saying no to the Coke felt awkward, then saying no to the tickets felt like breaking that reciprocity rule.
Wow. And this is the principle behind things like rejection then retreat, right? That door in the face thing.
Exactly that. You make a big request, something you know they'll probably refuse.
Okay.
Then when they say no, you immediately retreat to a smaller request.
Right.
The one you actually wanted all along.
So you look like you're compromising.
Right. Refusing your big request, then seeing you back down, it triggers their sense of obligation to also make a concession, to meet you halfway, so to speak.
And studies show this actually works.
Increases compliance with the smaller request, and get this, it makes people feel more satisfied with the outcome, like they successfully negotiated you down.
Clever. It's like a social judo move. And what's this rule of the bagel?
Yeah, that just highlights that small favors, these little debts, they're best cashed in quickly. While the feeling of obligation is still fresh, still warm, like a bagel, don't wait too long.
The feeling fades.
Right. The indebtedness is strongest right after the favor. Defending against it is tough because the rule feels so right, so ingrained.
Yeah.
The key is recognizing when a favor isn't genuine generosity, but a setup, a tactic.
Okay, moving on. There's the incredibly simple but obviously potent principle.
Yeah.
Liking. We say yes more to people we like.
Seems obvious, but what makes us like people in this influence context?
Good question.
Well, several factors pop up. Physical attractiveness, for one. There's a halo effect. We tend to just automatically assume good-looking people have other positive traits too, like kindness or intelligence.
Okay. Unfair, but probably true.
Similarity is huge too. We naturally like people who seem like us, shared background, interests, values, even just mirroring posture, and we're more easily persuaded by them.
Makes sense. And praise. Compliments.
Well, yeah. Compliments generally work. We tend to like people who praise us, even if we suspect flattery, as long as it's not totally clumsy. It makes us feel good. Maybe we want to live up to the compliment.
This is why compliance pros, salespeople, put so much effort into building rapport, right? Even if it feels a bit fake sometimes, like the car salesperson who goes off to battle the manager for you.
Exactly. They're creating this temporary us against them vibe, positioning themselves as your ally to build that liking and trust.
And Tupperware parties, the classic example.
Absolutely. You're often buying because you like your friend, the host, not just because you desperately need more plastic containers. The liking and trust within that social circle is the real engine.
Right, and that connects to the endless chain technique in sales too. Getting referrals.
Yep. If your friend recommends someone, they come pre-approved, basically. You already have a layer of trust built in because you like and trust your friend. The sources say something like 92% of consumers trust recommendations from people they know above all else.
Wow, 92%. That's the power of liking and those social ties.
It's a huge shortcut. My friend trusts them, maybe I can too.
Speaking of shortcuts, social proof. This one feels massive in today's world. We decide what's right, what's normal, by looking at what everyone else is doing. Especially when we're unsure.
Totally. That quote from Cavett Robert nails it. 95% of the people are imitators and only 5% initiators.
95%.
You see it everywhere. How people view morality, what's seen as criminal, even what food is healthy. They mentioned telling residents that other people in their area pay their parking tickets on time actually makes more people pay up.
Just knowing others do it.
Yep. And online. Forget about it. It's amplified like crazy. Almost every online shopper trusts customer reviews. That's pure social proof driving billions in sales.
But it's got a dark side, right?
Yeah.
Especially in emergencies. That pluralistic ignorance thing.
Yeah, that's worrying. If something ambiguous happens, like is that a scream or just kids playing, and everyone around is looking hesitant, unsure, doing nothing.
You look at them, they look at you.
And the shortcut your brain takes is, well, nobody else seems concerned, so it must not be a real emergency. Everyone freezes, looking to everyone else for cues. And because nobody wants to overreact and look foolish, nobody acts.
That's the core idea from the Kitty Genovese story, right? Even if the exact details were off, the psychological phenomenon is real.
Exactly. Or that UPI example from Chicago Neighbors, hearing screams but not acting because everyone assumed someone else must be calling the police. Or maybe it wasn't serious because no one else was reacting.
So a general call for help isn't enough.
Often isn't, because of diffusion of responsibility. Who's supposed to help? What should they do? Is someone else already on it? You need to point to someone specific. You in the blue shirt, call 911.
Makes sense. Then there's the really unsettling stuff, like the Werther effect, copycat suicides.
Yeah, studies show disturbing increases in suicides, even things like single-car fatal accidents right after a highly publicized suicide hits the news.
And similarity plays a big role there too.
Critically, we're most influenced by the social proof of people who seem like us. The sources mention the spike in teen suicides after 13 Reasons Why aired, likely because young viewers identified strongly with the characters, amplifying that peer-driven social proof.
In Jonestown, that's like the ultimate tragic example of social proof under extreme conditions.
Absolutely extreme. You take people, put them in a completely alien environment, the Guyana rainforest, strip away all their familiar cues and support systems.
They become incredibly uncertain.
Totally lost. And in that uncertainty, they become hyper-reliant on the group, and especially on the leader, Jim Jones, for guidance on what's correct, what to believe, how to act, even leading to mass suicide.
It's chilling. So social proof is often useful, like an autopilot.
Yeah, it guides us when things are ambiguous, but its power spikes when we feel lost, unsure, unfamiliar, just recognizing that vulnerability is the first step in defending against its misuse.
Okay, next principle, authority. our deep-seated tendency to just obey authority figures, or perceived authority figures.
The Milgram experiments are still the classic, disturbing illustration, aren't they?
Yeah, people giving increasingly severe electric shocks just because a guy in a lab coat told him to keep going.
It's shocking. But there was that later finding, too. If the person being shocked, the learner, was described as a friend, compliance plummeted.
So our loyalty to our in-group, our friends, can override obedience to authority.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Unity trumping authority in that case. But generally, we defer. And interestingly, we react just as strongly, maybe more strongly, to the symbols of authority as to the actual substance.
What kind of symbols?
Titles like doctor, professor, judge, clothing, uniforms, suits, even the trappings of expensive cars, fancy offices. These things signal authority, and we often react automatically.
Which is perfect for con artists.
Absolutely. They exploit this constantly. Adopt a title, rent a fancy car, wear the right clothes. Instant credibility boost makes people more likely to comply. Think about actors playing doctors in commercials, like for Vicks Formula 44.
Right, the actor wore an MD title. Everyone knows he's an actor.
But the symbol still works. It triggers that deference to medical authority.
Interesting point about building trustworthiness to admitting a minor flaw first. Like Warren Buffett talking about investment mistakes.
Yeah, it's a clever tactic. By admitting a small weakness or error, especially one in the past, you seem more honest, more human, more trustworthy. It makes the main message, the positive stuff, seem much more credible. Buffett does it even when Berkshire Hathaway has had a fantastic year. Builds long-term trust.
So how do we push back against this automatic deference?
The sources suggest asking two key questions. First, is this authority figure truly an expert in this specific situation? Look past the title or the suit. What are their actual credentials, and are they relevant here?
Okay, question 1. Relevance.
Second, how truthful can we expect this expert to be right now? Do they have a vested interest? Are they trying to sell something? What's their angle? And definitely be alert to those trust-building tactics, like admitting a minor flaw. Don't let the symbols or the tactics switch off your critical thinking.
Right.
Okay, let's talk scarcity. We want what we can't have, or what's hard to get. Seems basic. It is basic, but powerful. That cookie study proved that people rated the exact same cookies as tasting better and being more desirable when there were only 2 left in the jar compared to when there were 10.
A simple scarcity increases value.
But here's the kicker. Things that become scarce are valued even more highly than things that were always scarce. The change, the sense of dwindling availability, really amps it up.
Why is that?
It taps into psychological reactants, our strong aversion to having our freedoms restricted. If something is available, then suddenly becomes limited or forbidden, we feel our freedom to choose it is being threatened, and we desire it more intensely to reassert that freedom.
Like telling a toddler they can't play with a certain toy.
Exactly. Or the Romeo and Juliet effect, parental opposition can actually fuel teenage romance rather than extinguish it. The restriction increases the perceived value and desire.
Which explains why limited number offers limited time sales, only 3 left in stock. Messages are so effective.
Precisely. They trigger that fear of missing out, the fear of losing the freedom to get the item. It taps into loss aversion. We're generally more motivated by the fear of losing something than the prospect of gaining something of equal value, especially when things feel uncertain. Think of those holiday toy crazes, Beanie Babies, Tickle Me Elmo, the latest Xbox. Pure scarcity and loss aversion driving frantic buying.
The opportunity is slipping away. Panic.
Exactly. Rational assessment goes out the window.
Okay, commitment and consistency. This one feels really powerful psychologically. Once we commit to something, even small, we feel this internal pressure to stick with it, to be consistent.
It's a very strong drive. Being consistent makes us feel rational, trustworthy, stable. Inconsistency, on the other hand, creates psychological discomfort, what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. We feel this urge to resolve that discomfort, often by sticking to our original commitment, even if circumstances change.
So getting someone to agree to just a tiny thing first,
Yeah.
that can lead to bigger things later, like a foot in the door.
Absolutely. Salespeople use it. Charities asking for a small donation first, even in political campaigns or getting volunteers. The Korean War POW example is extreme, but it illustrates the principle. They got prisoners to make tiny, seemingly harmless, anti-American or pro-communist statements.
And slowly escalated.
Yes, each small step made it psychologically harder to resist the next slightly larger step as the prisoners sought consistency with their previous actions and statements. And making commitments, written or public, makes them even more powerful. Adds social pressure to the internal pressure.
That fuel conservation study was fascinating, too. People agreed to save fuel thinking their names would be publicized.
Right, but then the researchers told them, sorry, no publicity. You'd think they'd stop trying, right?
Yeah, the incentive's gone.
But they didn't. They actually increased their fuel-saving efforts. Because the initial commitment, even though the external reason was removed, had started to change their self-perception. They began to see themselves as energy-conscious citizens. The commitment became internal, so they acted even more consistently with that new self-image.
Wow. And I loved that gas station story. The narrator felt ripped off by the owner charging different prices.
Yeah, the owner basically challenged him, if you think I'm cheating you, just leave.
And because the narrator had already committed to the idea that the owner was a cheat.
He felt compelled by consistency to act on it. He literally dropped the gas hose and drove off, even though it was inconvenient. He had to be consistent with the stand he'd taken in his own mind.
So the defense here is, listen to your gut.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That first little twinge of discomfort when you feel cornered, pressured into agreeing to something you're not sure about because you already agreed to something smaller, and ask yourself that critical question. Knowing what I know now, if I could rewind time, would I still make this same commitment? Try to disconnect from the past action and evaluate the current choice on its own merits.
Okay. Last one of these core principles, unity. The power of we. This feels different from just liking someone.
It is deeper. It's about shared identity, feeling like you belong to the same group, the same tribe, family, ethnicity, nationality, religion, even fans of the same sports team.
We favor our own group.
Massively. We trust them more, we cooperate with them more easily, we're more influenced by them, and we use their behavior as a guide for our own. The sources argue this kind of tribalism is just fundamental human nature.
That study where people preferred their own team's robots over the rival team's humans, that's incredible.
Isn't it? It shows how strong that in-group bias can be, even overriding species loyalty. Even something simple like sharing a birthplace can increase cooperation.
And this connects back to referrals too, right? The endless chain idea.
Definitely. Getting a lead from a friend isn't just about liking, it's about leveraging that shared group identity and the trust that comes with it. My friend is part of my we.
Shared adversity seems to forge incredibly strong bonds of unity. That story about the Choctaw Nation sending aid to Ireland during the potato famine?
Yeah, remembering their own suffering on the Trail of Tears. It's described as kind of blood memory, a deep, fused identity born from shared trauma and empathy. Or think about the surge of community feeling after something like the Boston Marathon bombings. Shared crisis creates instant unity.
Even simple things like acting together.
Yes, acting in synchrony, tapping fingers together, singing or chanting together, marching in step studies show this increases feelings of closeness, trust, and willingness to help each other within the group.
Like the classic Robbers Cave experiment, the boys' camp study.
Exactly. Sharif showed how easy it was to create hostility between two groups of boys just through competition. But then, crucially, he showed that hostility could be overcome by getting them to work together on shared goals that required cooperation. That's the principle behind things like the jigsaw classroom method for reducing prejudice.
And compliance pros can try to manufacture this feeling, right? Like the car salesman creating that us versus the boss scenario again.
Yeah, he's trying to create a temporary artificial we group with you, the customer, against the them of the dealership management, building that sense of shared purpose, however fleeting.
But this unity thing has a dark side too.
Oh, definitely. That same powerful in-group loyalty can lead to cutting corners, bending rules, even serious misconduct if it benefits the in-group. Think about financial advisors giving biased advice to people in their network, or auditors overlooking problems at companies where they feel a sense of belonging.
So the group's welfare becomes more important than objective rules or ethics.
Yeah, it can, yeah. There can be this implicit assumption within the group that we look out for our own, that surveillance is low, or that minor infractions will be tolerated if they help the team.
So the same force that builds amazing communities can also enable bad behavior.
Precisely. It's a double-edged sword. The sources mention an interesting idea for bridging divides, trying to create family-like experiences for children from different groups, aiming to foster a sense of temporary shared identity, seeing outsiders not just as guests, but briefly as one of us.
Okay, wow. So that covers the deep psychological triggers, shortcuts, reciprocity, liking, social proof, authority, scarcity, consistency, unity, a whole toolkit for influence. Now let's shift gears a bit from the subconscious triggers to more conscious strategies. the art of negotiation.
Right. Moving beyond just reacting to these triggers and into consciously shaping the interaction. And the first big point is that negotiation isn't just logic and numbers.
It feels like it should be.
We wish. But it's deeply human. It's tangled up with psychology, emotions, fears, needs, identity. We try to be rational, sure, but we're fundamentally emotional creatures first. Understanding that is key.
And a core skill for managing that emotional side is tactical empathy. What is that exactly?
It's about recognizing, understanding, and then being able to articulate the other person's perspective, their feelings, their situation. Even if you totally disagree with them, it's not about agreeing. It's about showing you see where they're coming from.
How do you do that?
Techniques like labeling are crucial. You use phrases like, it sounds like, or it seems like, or it looks like, to voice the emotion or perspective you're picking up from them.
So you'd say, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated with this offer.
Exactly. Or it seems like you're worried about the timeline. Just saying it out loud, calmly, can actually diffuse the negative emotion. It makes them feel heard. And pausing after you label is important. Let them respond. Let them fill the silence. They often reveal more.
I like the sound of the accusation audit. That sounds intense, listing all the bad things they might be thinking about you.
It feels counterintuitive. We're
Yeah.
like, why would you put negative ideas out there? But it's incredibly powerful. By voicing their potential accusations or negative thoughts for them up front, you achieve a few things. You show yourself aware. You're not hiding from the potential negatives. You kind of steal their thunder. They can't hit you with it if you've already said it. And it clears the air, making them more open to listening because you've addressed their unspoken concerns. Like Anna, the consultant, listing every reason her difficult client might be angry before the client got a chance to rant. It totally changed the dynamic.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, here's one that really messes with my head. The power of no. We're always told to aim for yes in negotiation. No feels like failure.
We are taught that, but it's often wrong. No is usually not the end of the conversation. It's the start. It often means wait, or I'm not comfortable with that yet, or I don't understand, or I need more information.
So no isn't a rejection necessarily.
Not usually. In fact, pushing too hard for yes right away often makes people defensive, suspicious. Getting someone to say no can actually make them feel safer, paradoxically.
Safer.
Because saying no gives them a sense of control. They've asserted a boundary. It allows them to relax a bit, feel like they're not being railroaded. And crucially, when they say no, they often start explaining why not, which gives you incredibly valuable information about their real needs and constraints.
So sometimes you might actually want them to say no early on.
Absolutely. It can clear the path for a real conversation. And think about phrases like, how am I supposed to do that?
Sounds a bit confrontational.
It can be,
Yeah.
but delivered calmly, it's actually a deferential way of saying no yourself, while inviting them to solve your problem. You're not attacking their offer. You're highlighting your constraint and asking for their help in overcoming it. It puts the ball in their court. They use this effectively at Harvard, apparently, or using it in a car negotiation. How am I supposed to afford that monthly payment? Invites the salesperson to find solutions.
Right. Or that very simple, elegant refusal, your offer is very generous, I'm sorry, that just doesn't work for me.
Perfect. It acknowledges them, respectfully states your position, doesn't make excuses, doesn't offer a counter yet, and keeps the conversation open. Very effective.
Then there are calibrated questions, using how or what.
Yes, these are designed to gently guide the conversation and get the other side thinking without triggering defensiveness.
Because they can't just answer with a simple yes or no.
Exactly. Questions, starting with how or what, require more thoughtful answers. They prompt the other person to use their mental energy to figure out solutions that might work for you, or to explain their position more fully. And you generally avoid why questions because they can sound accusatory, like, why did you do that?
Got it. That Jose kidnapping example was incredible. The negotiator only used questions.
Pretty much. Calibrated questions like, how do I know Jose's okay? How can we possibly get that much money? What do you hope to achieve by keeping him? He kept the kidnappers engaged, talking, explaining, problem solving, but constantly put the onus back on them, kept them slightly off balance, and eventually got them to offer proof of life without making concessions himself. Masterful use of questions.
What about showing emotion, like anger? Is that ever a good idea in negotiation?
The sources are cautious about this. While strategically deployed, anger can sometimes intimidate a counterpart into conceding.
Yeah.
It often backfires. It can trigger fear and defensiveness in the other person, making them dig in their heels or shut down completely, leading to worse outcomes overall. If you do use strong emotion, it needs to be a calculated, controlled display, not a genuine loss of temper, and definitely not a personal attack. Using I statements, I feel frustrated when, rather than you are being unreasonable, can sometimes help express needs without direct accusation.
Okay. And underlying all of this, there's the mindset, be ready to walk away.
Absolutely crucial. You have to know your bottom line, your walkaway point, and be genuinely willing to say no deal if necessary. If you feel like you have to make a deal no matter what, you've basically taken yourself hostage. You have no leverage.
So no deal is better than a bad deal.
Always. This requires setting strong boundaries, but doing it with empathy. It's sometimes called tough love. You can be firm on what you need, resolute even, while still treating the counterpart respectfully. Never see them as the enemy, even when the bargaining gets tough.
And finally, the idea of finding black swans, the unknown unknowns.
Yeah, this is about uncovering those hidden, unexpected pieces of information that can completely change the negotiation dynamics. They're leverage multipliers.
Like the student buying the property who found out the seller had to sell urgently because of other mortgages.
Exactly. That was a black swan. The seller hadn't revealed it, the student discovered it, and it dramatically shifted the power balance. Finding these often requires digging deeper, asking those calibrated questions, and really trying to understand the other side's world, their constraints, their hidden pressures, what the source calls their religion.
Their underlying worldview and motivations.
Right. What truly drives them beyond the surface issues. It means staying curious, listening intently, and remaining flexible, because you never know what critical piece of information might emerge unexpectedly. Every negotiation is unique.
Okay, so we've got the human psychology, the negotiation tactics. Now let's layer on the big amplifier, this coming wave of technology.
Yeah, this is where things get potentially wild. We're talking about the really rapid acceleration we're seeing in artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, advanced robotics, quantum computing.
The sources mention this claim that AI might reach human-level performance across many tasks in just, 3 years?
Yet that specific timeline might be debated, but the underlying point is that a massive transformation feels imminent, maybe faster than we anticipate.
And this tech doesn't stay contained, right? It spreads.
Inevitably. Technology diffusion just keeps accelerating. The incentives to develop and adopt are huge. Capabilities build on each other exponentially, and costs tend to plummet over time. So each new wave penetrates society faster and deeper than the last.
The potential for good here is obviously enormous, though.
Oh, absolutely transformative. Imagine cheap, truly personalized drugs designed for your specific genetics. AI enabling super fast, accurate medical diagnoses. AI designing new materials for sustainable batteries, or creating replacements for things like synthetic fertilizers that damage the environment. AlphaFold solving protein folding.
That was huge for biology.
An earthquake, they called it. Suddenly opened up vast new possibilities for understanding diseases and designing treatments. CRISPR gene editing holds immense promise for fighting viruses, treating genetic conditions.
And robotics, 3D printing.
Could revolutionize construction, manufacturing, logistics, making things faster, cheaper, more decentralized. The potential upsides are staggering.
There's always a but.
A very big but. This incredible power comes with equally immense dangers and really thorny ethical dilemmas that the sources are clearly grappling with.
Like what? Privacy seems like an obvious one.
Massive invasions of privacy,
Yeah.
fueled by the sheer volume of data we generate and the AI tools to analyze it in ways we can't even comprehend. Then there's the potential for a misinformation apocalypse.
Deep fakes. AI-generated fake news.
Exactly. Content that's indistinguishable from reality, created easily, spread instantly, undermining trust, manipulating opinion. It's a huge threat.
An outright weaponization.
For sure. More sophisticated cyber weapons, autonomous drones capable of making kill decisions, increasing vulnerability of our critical infrastructure. Remember the WannaCry ransomware attack hitting hospitals, businesses worldwide, cost billions, disrupted essential services? That's just a taste.
There's also the risk from synthetic biology, right? Accidents, leaks.
Yeah, the sources highlight the ongoing concern about accidental releases or deliberate misuse of engineered pathogens created in labs, even high-security ones. And beyond specific threats, there's this broader concern about a high-tech panopticon,
Meaning?
going beyond just surveillance, just watching, using AI not just to monitor behavior, but to predict it, and maybe even subtly steer or coerce it. influencing purchasing decisions, maybe even voting patterns, shaping public opinion in ways that are hard to detect.
Wow, and this tech could also empower smaller groups, not just states.
That's a key point. These tools for communication, coordination, propaganda, maybe even DIY manufacturing or hacking, they become accessible to non-state actors, potentially radical groups. It can make things like mass mobilization, secessionist movements, even attempts to form breakaway states much easier than before.
And this connects to existing social tensions, inequality.
Some sources definitely draw that link, suggesting that rising inequality and social resentment, particularly in the West, could create fertile ground for groups using these new tools to challenge the existing order.
Meanwhile, authoritarian states are leaning into this.
Absolutely. China's explicit goal of AI leadership by 2030 is mentioned as a prime example. States like that can pour massive resources into developing and deploying these technologies for national power, economic advantage, and crucially, for social control, amplifying the dangers on a global scale.
So the people building this tech, they struggle to control where it ends up. Containment is hard.
Incredibly hard. How do you ensure these powerful tools aren't used for harm? How do you deny access to bad actors when the knowledge and capabilities spread so easily? They're a massive challenge.
Regulation must be part of the answer.
It's seen as necessary, yeah. The EU's AI Act, with its risk-based approach banning unacceptable risks, regulating high-risk applications, is one model. But the problem is these technologies are global. National laws alone aren't enough. You need international cooperation, alliances, treaties, and that's incredibly difficult politically.
Okay, so we have the human psychology, the negotiation art, and this accelerating, powerful, potentially dangerous tech wave. Bring it all together. Where do these worlds collide?
This is the crucial synthesis, I think. The core message seems to be that this tech wave doesn't magically create new human buttons to push. Instead, it takes all those fundamental principles of influence we talked about: reciprocity, social proof, authority, scarcity, consistency, unity, and the tactics of negotiation, and it amplifies them massively with incredible speed, scale, and personalization.
So our existing psychological vulnerabilities get weaponized, essentially.
He's hyper-leveraged. Think about social proof. Technology makes it trivial to create the illusion of consensus or popularity at scale. Viral trends driven by algorithms, bot farms generating fake reviews or comments, hyper-personalized ads showing you what people like you are buying.
Manufacturing social proof on demand.
Exactly. Scarcity. Easy to create artificial digital scarcity. Timed releases, limited virtual items that trigger that same old fear of missing out. Authority. Deepfakes can convincingly impersonate trusted figures. AI can generate plausible-sounding expert analysis that's completely fabricated.
And consistency. You mentioned tech companies track us.
Obsessively. They build profiles, infer our beliefs, our path commitments, our identities. Then they can tailor messages, offers, even news feeds, to nudge us towards behavior that seems consistent with who they think we are or who they want us to be.
And unity. Tribalism.
Social media algorithms are notorious for creating echo chambers, reinforcing our existing group identities, feeding us content that confirms our biases, and often portrays outgroups negatively. This makes us more susceptible to influence from within our digital tribe, and potentially more hostile or dismissive towards different perspectives. It directly fuels the misinformation risks and exploitation of social divisions we discussed.
How does this change negotiations specifically?
Well, imagine negotiating against someone who has used AI to analyze vast amounts of data about you, predicting your likely responses, your stress points, your walkaway threshold, or using sophisticated simulations to game out every possible move.
That's a huge advantage.
Potentially, yes. Finding those black swans, the hidden information, might increasingly involve AI digging through data trails. And understanding the other side's religion, their worldview, becomes even more critical when they might be operating with technological tools you don't fully understand or coming from an information ecosystem completely different from yours, shaped by these same technologies.
It definitely sounds like the stakes are going up for understanding influence and for being good at negotiation.
I think they are. Negotiation skills aren't just for salary talks anymore. They become vital for navigating the conflicts and misunderstandings potentially fueled by this tech proliferation, for dealing with diverse actors who might have access to powerful new tools. Those same calibrated questions, how do you know that's true, what's the basis for that claim, become essential for interrogating information, whether it comes from a human or a machine.
So let's bring this right back to the person listening now. What's the core takeaway for them navigating their own lives?
Look, understanding all this, the psychology, the tactics, the tech amplification, It's not just about spotting how others might be trying to influence you, although that's important. It's maybe even more about understanding your own defaults, your own shortcuts, your own emotional triggers, your own susceptibility to these principles in this crazy, noisy, tech-saturated environment.
Self-awareness is key.
Absolutely. In an age where influence attempts are constant, sophisticated, and amplified by powerful tools, knowing your own vulnerabilities, knowing the landscape, it feels less like optional knowledge and more like, I don't know, essential literacy for just getting by effectively and making conscious choices.
Yeah.
So we've touched on that deep human psychology of influence, the practical skills in negotiation, and this really transformative and, potentially dangerous power of the tech wave that's building.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. As this technology keeps accelerating, weaving itself into everything, amplifying our ability to influence and our susceptibility to be influenced, how do we collectively try to steer this thing? How do we ensure this wave helps us flourish rather than leading us somewhere dark and unexpected?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
And maybe more personally, what's your role? Your role in understanding this complex landscape, navigating it, and maybe even helping shape it in whatever small way you can. Something to think about.
Thanks for listening to Margin Notes. If this episode sparked new thoughts or made you pause, we'd love it if you liked, subscribed, and share it with someone curious. Don't forget to follow us for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. Until next time, stay aware, stay sharp, and keep questioning the obvious.